Ladies and gentlemen, the person we have coming up next, I have to tell a little story about real quick. Because it's no secret at this point who she is, Miss Candace Craw Goldman. And to me, this lady is an absolute legend in research. In the community, we find this really funny statistic. And we looked at a lot of numbers yesterday. We find this interesting thing that if you knew Cynthia Sue Larson as a researcher, you probably didn't know Dolores Cannon. And if you knew Dolores Cannon as a researcher, you probably hadn't heard of Cynthia Sue Larson. I was in the Cynthia camp, by the way, for those who are wondering. But Dolores was a amazing researcher for her time, and this next lady used to work directly with Miss Dolores. And when she first got here, of course, she ran up to me and threw her arms around me, gave me a big old hug, and said, "You're a celebrity." I'm sorry, do you know who you are? And it really has been an honor to have her with us this weekend. I know a lot of you had the chance to talk to her. Ladies and gentlemen, what actually is a miracle? Can we really manifest or create miracles at will? And if so, how? And what does the Mandela Effect have to do with this idea? The Mandela Effect is often first noticed with cultural changes, a line in a movie or song, or a name of product on the grocery shelf. Some of the most shocking MEs for so many are the physical kind, particularly the ones concerned with the human body. The very concept of the Mandela Effect suggests that reality, even very basic physical reality, is malleable and fluid. Working in alternative and energy healing and consciousness exploration since 2000, and notably with the late Dolores Cannon, directly for more than 6 years, Candace will share stories of discovery and miraculous instantaneous changes that she and her clients and students have witnessed in BQH and QHHT sessions. For those that are wondering, I'm sure she will explain those acronyms in just a moment. Everyone deemed impossible by convention doctors in our current medical system. We all have the potential to welcome miracles into our lives, and all of the different kind of MEs are beautiful examples and proof that profound changes, even physical ones, are possible for us all. Candace Craw Goldman is a wife, mother, and grandmother. A mysterious years-long chronic pain condition inspired her to explore alternative healing. A supernatural experience directed her to Dolores Cannon, and the pain disappeared. And she began her life as a quantum healer. Soon she began working with Dolores, officially supporting her students, assisting in live classes and program creation. Candace worked with Dolores until her passing in 2014. Candace founded QuantumHealers.com in 2008, at first only supporting Dolores Cannon students. Today, it represents thousands of alternative healers of all modalities, with its thriving community worldwide directory and educational programs. In 2017, Candace developed Beyond Quantum Healing. I have a feeling that was the BQH. I hear we have some fans of this in the background there. The online course is available in 5 languages. She also created Quantum Connect in 2023. QC is fun, fast, no-trance method that helps clients experience communication with their higher selves. Quantum Connect is perfect for healers, counselors, coaches, and all who are in service to others. Candace received her BFA and MFA in painting and spent 22 years as a professional photographer. She lives on a sprawling Kansas farm with her husband, horses. I really thought that was his name there for a second. I am so sorry, but the way that's written. With her husband, horses, a mini donkey named Elvis, and assorted critters. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to be able to introduce the one and only Candace Craw Goldman.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you all for coming. Let's see, make sure I got my arrows correct. About There we go. Thank you to all the speakers. Particularly thank you for the attendees. Your energy here, I know, is changing the world. I absolutely know it. When I was asked to speak, I said to Shane, November 2024, really? And then laughed and laughed. It was like, where else would we want to be as this world moves into this new place it's moving into, which we all knew would happen, right? Can you feel the expansion and what's changed just since you've been here and where we're headed in the coming end of 2024 and into 2025? It's very exciting, and we are helping to create where we're going next. And it is such an amazing and such a beautiful day, isn't it? It is such a beautiful day, even with that wonderful rain coming out from the sky. I wonder if y'all would help me celebrate by singing just a few lines of this song with me, would you? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Well, that's how I remember it. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, but a fact checker would take exception to that and tell you that that's not correct. It's always been, always, a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Not when I was a kid, right? Probably heard that song thousands of times. This is me in about 1968. And Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood came into being at about that time. But I didn't really watch that show too much. Why? It was for the little kids, you know. I was more into this show, Looney Tunes. And we didn't have much to watch in those days, you know. There was Mr. Rogers of Sesame Street after school and Looney Tunes on Saturdays, and we never missed Looney Tunes. And I was a good student. I could spell pretty well even at a young age. And I remember one Saturday we'd watched cartoons. Mom's like, when we're done watching cartoons, we're going to go run some sort of errand. And I was sitting in the car with my mom and my brother, and I'd been thinking silently for a long time, why was Looney Tunes spelled like that? I knew Tunes wasn't spelled like that. And then it occurred to me, oh my God, that's funny. That's a pun. I had no idea what a pun was, but I knew it was funny. And I even remember like the cross street where I was sitting when I was laughing internally about this joke, right? So, when did it change, right? When did it turn into that? I don't know, right? I was a curious kid, and I asked a lot of questions, just like maybe you did. I asked questions about big things and little things. And a lot of what adults told me was reality just didn't make sense to me. I asked about God. I asked about life. I asked about death. My memories long mismatched what others told me reality really was. Did y'all have childhoods like that? Man, you know, ever since I was little, right? So this followed me throughout life, all the way into this next slide. It's going to play automatically. But 1979 was the year I graduated high school. And this particular movie was very popular. And we all went to go see this movie. And this movie is such a big anchor memory for me. It was Moonraker. And in this movie, there was this scene, and we should hear it now, a little bit of the background music. And that character right there is Jaws, the big guy. He had a mouthful of steel, and he could bite through steel cables. And he sees the girl, and he smiles, and watch the sun glinting off his teeth. And she smiles, and who remembers this movie? What's supposed to happen here? Isn't it supposed to be more like that? Yes. That's why it was funny. He had metal. She had metal. I'm 18 in the audience. All of us teenagers, a lot of us who had braces. This was hysterical. That was the biggest laugh of the whole movie. And for weeks, the kids in our high school teased, especially the girls, you want to lock your braces up with Jaws? Is that what you're going to do? Or, Stephen over there or whatever, right? It was this huge joke. You can't take that anchor memory away from me. These are the fun and memorable classic Mandela effects that kind of begins the whole thing for most of us, I guess. But we know, especially the last few days, that the Mandela effect is so much more. Actual scientific research, and it encompasses so many more subjects. All kinds of things are wrapped around this big umbrella. And one of the things that I love most about all of this, of course, is this idea of the participatory universe. We can affect this. We are a part of these effects. We're not separate from them. These are two of my favorite books, and how fun is it that we can point to the authors right here in this audience, right? My dear friend Shane, Cynthia Sue Larson. You need to pick up those books if you don't have them already. So the Mandela effects, for me, some of the biggest ones are the physical ones that make the biggest impressions on me. And that slots directly into what I'm going to talk about today, which is this idea of healing and miracles. Now, my life turned on a dime one day in 2008. I was working as the professional photographer, and I had this photo shoot that I'd been working on for months. It was going to be the biggest of my life. I had a set, I had a crew, I had lights, all of that. Coming down to the day where this shoot was going to happen, and I couldn't get out of bed because of my chronic pain condition. And I had to cancel everything. Well, that experience led me into the path of becoming a healer and a consciousness explorer. Because that day I changed the question that I asked, or I changed the prayer that I made. I no longer asked for relief in my hours of praying about my personal condition. It went from, please help me, to what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I just simply changed the question. And I kind of prayed myself into a stupor. And all of that brought me into a place of even more Mandela effects. But I want to tell you about some of that a little more deeply here in a moment. The synchronicities and sudden awareness of people or things, which are Mandela effects themselves, are going to be highlighted throughout my talk. So in reading Cynthia's book, I got to page 41 when she talks about the sudden awareness of people that you haven't been aware of before. And she actually mentions Dolores Cannon. And as I'm reading that, I'm going, but that's you to me, Cynthia. I suddenly became aware of you. And then like we heard from Jerry, there seems to be the two camps, right? The Dolores camp, the Cynthia Sue camp, who, of course, synchronistically, she walks through the door at this moment as I'm saying that. So some of what I want to talk about today, some of these grand, mysterious, amazing, miraculous things that happen, Dolores seems to play a part as that sudden awareness of this person, right, in some of these things. Dolores was a prolific author. She wrote more than 22 books or so. Past life regression, the basics of that are relaxation into your consciousness, allowing information first and classically of a past life to come through. But quantum healing has opened up to many, many more things. All right. So the first story I'm going to tell is another one of these stories where Dolores Cannon shows up. Very interesting things tend to happen. And my dear friend, Priscilla Lewis, there she is. She's right over here in red. When I click the next slide, it's going to start a video. This video is going to show you two things. It's going to show you our mutual friend and colleague, Emma Louise. Emma Louise is first going to explain how Dolores suddenly appeared to her in her world. And then the second part of this clip is going to be a BQH session, actually done online. And thank goodness that day it was done online. Why? Because this video was captured to show this fantastic effect that happened in the session itself. That part of the session is speeded up, compressed into a few seconds. How long was the session, Scylla? It was about half an hour. This effect that you're going to see took about half an hour to manifest, but it's going to be compressed for use of time here. So here we are. This is a beautiful Scylla. And
I was walking in the forest and a lady came up to me, my elderly lady, and she was nice and she was speaking in English to me and she was, "Hello, how are you?" I started talking with her and she just looked like, you and me and everyone here. And we were walking around in the forest and she spoke about her book and the New Earth, and her name was Dolores Cannon, and I had never heard about her, never. I had no idea who she was.
so she looked solid. She's walking in the woods. This woman comes up to her. This is long after she died. This woman comes up to her and says, "I'm Dolores Cannon." She becomes a practitioner, a BQH practitioner. This is their session. She's connecting with Source here. She's speaking with Source. And Scylla watches this light manifest, and we capture it, and we're able to show it to you here. There was nothing in the room that could have created these effects. There was no glass. There was no mirror. There was no twinkling things in the window. There was nothing like that. And one of the wonderful things about doing these BQH sessions online, sometimes the electronic equipment can pick up some of this stuff, even sometimes that the eye does see. Scylla did see this with her eyes. Sometimes it picks up things that we can't see. Yeah. So that was a pretty amazing session. But small things show up too. Quick story about a session I had with my friend Michelle. Walking towards the bed. She's going to lay down and begin her quantum healing session. We're just standing there. She's getting ready to kind of lift up the covers and go into this bed. We're both standing there, and right here, right at eye level, while we're standing there, a white feather manifests itself and gently floats down like this. Boom, right in the center of the pillow. And we're like, knowing, of course, that what's to come is going to be miraculous. And oh my goodness, was it ever. So all kinds of things, right? Appear, disappear. Big things, little things. How about this? I had a client come to see me once for complications she had with a broken arm. Wasn't healing, it hurt, all of this. She was a healer itself. A lot of people who are in this community go to other healers for help, right? This was another one of those cases. She was doing some healing. She was a massage therapist. She came to me with a broken arm. It really bothered her. It wasn't healing. She had a fantastic session. She was given very specific things to do for healing, and she didn't follow any of them. And that's more common than you might imagine, right? Why is this important? Well, she found this, my office at the time was in Austin, Texas, and she knew how to exit the freeway because of this giant pink mirrored building right at the exit that she came to have her session. She didn't really mention it at the time, and why should she? It was just a building she passed all the time. Okay, so she has the session. She doesn't follow anything. She's not getting any better. She ends up breaking her leg. Next, she calls me up, says, "Candace, I now have a broken leg." I'm like, "Well, come back." She did. She came back for a second session. I go to open up the door. I open up the door, and she's standing there like this. Her name's Patty. What's the matter, Patty? Are you okay? I don't know. It's gone, she said. I said, what's gone? She said, the big pink building. The pink building's gone. I said, what are you talking about? The glass pink building, the one that glows every night at the sunset. That building right there on Route 222, it's gone. And I'm like, I really never noticed a big pink building on Route 222. But we had a talk, right? She's a healer. We know what was happening here. The timeline's already shifted before she ever even got to my office to have a session. And sure enough, fantastic session. Healing was provided for the arm and for the leg, and a very specific new set of instructions, which, believe this or not, had to do with more highways. Why? Her little apartment was right by an access road to a highway, and she was told that while she was recovering and healing for her leg and arm and couldn't do massage for clients, that the people who drove past her increased energy field would be receiving her healing on the way to rush hour traffic, or during rush hour traffic on their way to work, exactly when they needed it the most. It was a really beautiful session. So what's the biggest things that you've ever had appear or disappear? Buildings, things like that, right? For me, it was this, actually. It was a rag rug. And this happened long before I ever met Dolores Cannon or knew anything about healing other than just some of the very basics. We were living in Pennsylvania at the time, and we went in and out of our house primarily through the garage. Kids were little. This big rag rug would take the snow from our boots. We'd sit on the rug. I'd help the kids with their boots on and off. And we'd had this huge snowstorm. 3 feet of snow. We'd been snowed in for days. And one day the snowplow finally went by our street. And I said, let's go, kids. And we just went and had breakfast in town just to get out of the house. It was really early, and nobody else in the neighborhood was stirring. As I recall, Tom was out of town. It was just us and the kids. And we went and had breakfast, and we came back, and I remember looking around going, God, nobody in the neighborhood's even gotten up yet. They're all just still sleeping in. We pulled into our same tracks back into the house, and I opened up the door, and that rug was gone. We had a pretty big laundry room. That I'm just standing there. What? I mean, you had the weirdest things go through your head at that time. I'm like, did I fall and hit my head somewhere? Am I dreaming? What's happening here? That rug never came back. I have no idea what happened. I didn't even know what to think about it. Now I really believe it was a timeline shift. Maybe it had something to do with that big snowstorm, right? But pay attention to little things, feathers, big things, buildings and rugs. So if physical things can appear and disappear, maybe they can do that moving around and changing things even in our own bodies now. We've even mentioned, I've heard people talk already on this conference about the human kidneys, right? It used to be called a kidney punch because if you got kicked right back here, hit right back here, that was really dangerous. You could have kidney injury. But that's no longer the case. We now have our rib cage that helps protect our kidneys. So many of you very keen observers will look at this and realize that's an AI image, right? That's AI. That's a recent image. What's AI doing? Putting kidneys below the rib cage if that's not where they exist now. What's going on there? Where did AI get that information then? What? What's happening there? I think that's pretty interesting. Our hearts, always on the left side before, now more in the middle. Our skulls are different. Our eye sockets are different. So if our anatomy changed, if all of that is happening, and if we have an open mind to this concept, what else can change for us individually? You know, I find that most of you all in this room are pretty open to all of these concepts. Some of them might be new to you, but I can't imagine you aren't going, well, maybe, to all of these crazy things, right? So what about this idea of being open-minded enough for things like spontaneous remissions to happen, diseases to just disappear, tumors to just disappear, crooked spines straighten, broken bones instantly mend themselves? Maybe we can do that, right? But how about conventional medical people? I met a conventional medical person here today who said she's open-minded to it. What a gift. I already told her, well, I'm going to maybe talk bad about you a little bit in this talk, your group. Forgive me in advance. How many doctors are open-minded enough for that? Not many, right? Not many. So if we can accept this stuff, anything's possible. With BQH, I've seen birth defects reverse. If a birth defect can reverse, what's not possible, right? And a little bit later, some of you already know this, but there's a video out there that shows a tumor disappearing in real time. We're going to watch that in just a little bit. So can you order up a miracle just like we order up lunch? No, you can't. You really can't. Not really. There are all kinds of things that need to come together for a miracle to take place. Maybe it's your soul contract, it's your personal energy, it's your connection with or relationship to the divine. There's so many different things, and you can't demand a miracle. You can't insist upon it. You cannot. However, you can put yourself in some of the best situations to help one come to you, help create one for you and a loved one. You can do that. And I will submit to you that miracles are not as rare and as few and as impossible as we've been led to believe. And this story will tell you how true that is. This is my mother and my father. This is my dad. He is at this time 78 at the time. My mom was 91. Mom was already on her second pacemaker at this time because she outlived her first one. She had congestive heart failure. When this photo was taken, Dad was still absolutely healthy. Not a thing wrong with him at 78. Fishing down in Port Aransas, Texas. This photograph. A few years after this photo was taken, when Dad was 84 and Mom was 87, my mother was already on one of these. It sat in the hallway of a ranch-style house they were living in at the time. It had a mile-long hose and the cannula in her nose, and she had it on 24/7 because of her congestive heart failure. She was already on this. The year was 2014. While all that's going on, she and my dad both come down with a terrible pneumonia. And I was quite concerned about them at the time. Mom actually came out of a little better than Dad did, which surprised everybody because he was the healthy one. It took him a while to kick the pneumonia, and when he finally sort of did, he had trouble breathing, and he was on one of those too. Here, I kind of did that too quickly, but that's all right. You can look at him here. He was put on one of those machines too. There's two of them, each his and hers, oxygen generators in the hallway, and their hoses would get mixed up. They were both on those things for a year and a half. I remember sitting at the kitchen table like this. You know, I'm doing quantum healing at the time, but neither one of them were candidates for the classic past life regression, which is kind of hypnosis one-on-one. Neither one of them had great hearing. Their concept, their communicative abilities weren't great. Their attention span, they really weren't great candidates for quantum healing in the traditional sense. So we tried something different. We tried remote, meaning they were nowhere near, surrogate, meaning not even them were involved, and we did one-on-one healing with somebody stepping into their place for healing. So two people, two wonderful ladies in Oklahoma did my dad's healing first because he was in trouble. Within hours of them doing a classic past life regression, he took off his oxygen and has never put it back on. This is 10 years later, a few weeks ago. He's 94. No oxygen, no medication of any kind. How many 94-year-olds you know, except for occasional things, he's not on blood pressure, he's not on anything. He is slowly leaving our world in terms of memory, but right now he's healthy as can be at 94. Still walking. If he's just a walker, that's my dad. All right. Yeah. So what are the odds, right? What are the odds? Mom's like, I want some of that. He took his cannula off. You got rid of his machine. I want some of that. I'm like, well, and I mean, I'm in the position of telling my parents because miracles are possible. What are the odds that I can, like, one after another got one for Dad. Mom wants one too. Not every healing session produces a miracle. It just doesn't. I don't care who you talk to. It just doesn't. But of course, Mom, and I'm thinking, within hours, she took off hers. We got rid of her machine. We returned both of those machines back to the supply store. Now, Mom's congestive heart failure was not healed, but she no longer needed the oxygen to breathe. And this is even bigger. My mom, she had a really poor attitude. It was negative. It was poor me. She was miserable. After this session, she wasn't miserable anymore. She only lived about another 6 months. She died complications of a stroke. But she was at peace. It was almost more miraculous than the oxygen leaving her body. Those last few months with my mother were such a gift. So, Mom and Dad. Here's a little story. This one's about me. No, that's not a picture of me, but it's one depicting something like I was in Texas in the early 2000s at some point. I was absolutely lost in moisture from my face with allergies due to mountain juniper. I had cedar fever, is what Texans call it. My eyes ran, my nose ran, I coughed. I was so ill all the time. I couldn't even sleep laying down because I would bubble, and it was dangerous. And it got so bad my throat would start to close up. I was scared. I was doing Reiki and the little things I knew to do at the time. But I happened to do something this day. I read an article. I read a story. I read this really wild story in a paranormal magazine about somebody waking up in a different world, in a different body. I'd never read anything like that. Wow, that's weird. Went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up. And I woke up and I looked around. I'm not in my own bed. No, I'm not in my own bed. I start poking my arms. I'm like, okay, I'm here. This is me. This is my body. This is a round bed. It has terrible colors. Whoever decorated this room doesn't know what they're doing. What's happening here? And I start to panic. I mean, I'm panicking. Imagine going to sleep in your own bed and waking up in a place that you don't recognize. So I'm starting to panic. And just as I'm feeling the panic rise in me, in through the room comes our beautiful children, Lauren and Dylan. Lauren, a little older, Dylan running. They're carrying their stuffed animals. They're playing right next to the bed. So I'm kind of holding it together because that's what you do when you're a parent. And here's the thing, though. When I went to sleep, they were teenagers. They were little kids. And here I am looking at them much, much younger. And my daughter had bobbed hair right up to her ear. I never bobbed that child's hair. I let it grow as long as... I'm like, what is even happening here? And I'm getting scared. And I'm like, okay, if there's Lauren and Dylan, if I have the same body, it looks like I do, there's got to be a Tom in this world somewhere. And then I start freaking out. What do? Go tell him, hey, honey, I came from that world where our children are teenagers already, and what's he going to do? Is he going to take me to a psychiatrist, get me electroshock therapy? Are they going to lock me up? What's going on here? So I'm panicking again. The story gets more complex here, and I won't go into it right now, but let's just say I took a great big sigh and I went like this. And I laid back on my pillow on that ugly round bed. But before I even went to sleep, what I realized something. I was breathing. I was panicking, but I was breathing fine. I wasn't leaking. And you know what? I woke up in the middle of the night and I could see everything without these. I've worn these since those first pictures you saw at the beginning of this talk. I've been nearsighted this whole time. So I did realize that. I never saw a mirror, but I go like this. I go back to sleep. I wake up the next day. My allergies no longer were going to kill me. They were annoying a little bit, but they were regular allergies. Alas, I still have these. I didn't get, but I got the healing from the allergies. They were never a problem again. All I did was read a story. I just read a story. So once you introduce and consider a concept, any concept into your life, it becomes more possible. I completely believe that, right? So knowing stories of miracles, what else could possibly manifest in your life, right? How about this one? I once had a week. This all happened in a week. I had a week of 3 people coming to see me, Miss Physician. 3 who had metal in their bodies. Broken leg, rods down the spine, a broken wrist. All 3 metal in their bodies. This is a little more interesting, too, because I didn't call up Dolores Cannon very often in my relationship with her, but I did this time. And at one point, I'm like, Dolores, metal in bodies? She's like, I just had one this week. We find these things kind of grouped together, even between practitioners. That wasn't until the 3rd session that during the session, I had this idea. I was like, rather than just heal the complications around this metal being in their bodies, it occurs to me, I asked the higher self, I asked the healing team, can we just replace the plates and the screws with body parts? Can we do that? They were like, sure, we can do that. And I'm like, okay then. She raises up her arm like this. She's in a trance. So this has all come with the story. Her arm's up here like this. It's shaking. She's sweating. Later, she says, it was a little painful. But she knew to pay attention, let it do like this. She sat up. This is the one with the wrist. She sat up and she started poking her finger right in here. She says, it's gone. The metal's gone. I'm telling you, the metal's gone. She took my finger. She's trying to poke my finger down in her wrist. She's like, see, you can't feel those screw heads and those plates anymore. And I'm like, we were so intrigued by this, we actually got her an x-ray. Like, while she's waiting, we have these thoughts, naive thoughts, very naive. Wouldn't it be amazing to share this miracle with the world? Oh, but the world's not ready for this at all, even if it were real. She went and got an x-ray. The x-ray showed that metal was there just like her doctor put it. So what's going on there? What's going on there? We have a lot of theories, but every once in a while, guess what? There is medical proof. Whoop.
But it's only a miracle.
Here we are.
Until we understand the science, then it's no longer a miracle. It becomes a technology, a powerful internal technology. So this film was created in a medicineless hospital in Beijing, China. Medicineless hospital. No medicine hospital. I like that hospital. They create the feeling as if the woman is already healed. Now, we will look inside of her body through a sonogram, through ultrasound. We can look into her body and we can watch her cancer disappear in 3 minutes.
So this next part is definitely speeded up. You can find this entire clip's about 10 minutes long online. On the left-hand side, they've taken a snapshot. This is a bladder and a tumor in there, and they're pointing to it. The right-hand side of the screen is the live sonogram that happens during the 3 minute of chanting and healing that the woman is going through. And so, again, it's speeded up, and you can watch that tumor as it slowly ceases to exist. Gratitude, imagining that it's already done, that you can live in a world where there is no bladder tumor there. And that's proof there. So these kinds of proofs are not common at all. That's why this video has been shared so many times. And at some point later, we'll talk. Shane and I were talking. This video, I think, has its own Mandela Effect on the longer clip that we never noticed before. We could talk about that after the presentation if we want. So sometimes you can prove it. And here's one, I think. Nope, I'm going in the wrong direction. There we are. So this is Lorna's actually, or she was a number of years ago. I'm not sure if she's still practicing. She was a practitioner who had a bulging disc, a bulging disc that was pushing into her spine. The right side of the screen, the red box would show an enlarged portion of what you see on the left-hand side of the screen. Before and after. Having a session, a quantum healing session, in this case, QHHT. But not only do you see that the bulge goes away, look at the quality of the vertebrae. Look at the degraded bones. Look at the more youthful structure over here. This is extraordinary. When she was standing in her doctor's office and they were looking at this, he insisted these were not her scans, and they could not be. And all this brouhaha and all of this commotion is going on. And he's finally convinced, yes, her medical number is on there, and yes, it is, and the timestamp and all of that. And she's just looking there, and she's thrilled and all that. And we're all so thrilled. Was the doctor thrilled? Oh, no. Oh, no. He threw her out of the room and said, don't ever speak with me again. Doesn't fit his reality. Not going to go there. So how important is it to you that you have an open-minded doctor? Kind of important, isn't it? I actually have, there's a video on our channel right now called Liver, Bone Mass, Cancer Disappear. This is a very enlightened client who knew she loved her doctor. She had her doctor for a long time. He didn't believe that she could reverse her liver scarring and function. He didn't believe it was possible, so she fired him, even though she loved him, because he insisted and was part of the creation of her reality where that couldn't happen. So she had to find another doctor, and it hurt her to do that. But that's sometimes what you have to do, right? Okay, so I'm now quickly going to move to synchronicities, and because this is big, right? A profound spiritual experience led to a full day of unbelievable synchronicities is what brought me to Dolores Cannon in this work, and I'm going to try to quickly tell you about this. This was the day I couldn't get out of bed, changed my prayer, right? What do I do? Instead of, please help me, what do I do? I prayed myself into a stupor. I suddenly was out of body looking at these beings. Guess what they did? The big one in the middle handed me an action list. I couldn't believe it. It looked just like this. All right, go to your doctor, tell him you're tired. I wasn't tired. What? Okay. Number 2, volunteer for NILMDTS. That's NILMITS. That's Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. I'll explain what that is in a moment. Number 3, that's self-explanatory. Have a past life regression. Within hours, each of these 3 action items were handed to me on a platter in unbelievable ways. In my head, I've made this movie. I'm going to make a movie of this someday. Not even this part. The next day, the thing that happened the next day, right? The next day I wake up, I call my doctor who never has an appointment unless it's something serious. You're not going to see him for 6 weeks. First thing I do is call him up. They're like, yep, come on in. He has a cancellation right away. Can you be here this morning? I'm like, okay. Next thing I do, I look up. Now I lay me down to sleep. I heard about them. Of course I did. I was a professional photographer. They provide infant bereavement memory photographs, keepsake photographs for babies who are born still or who die shortly after birth. I had 2 troubled pregnancies. I was in hospital for a long time. I wasn't sure I could do this. But I got online. I started to apply, and everywhere on the application it says, we need 6 weeks. Don't even call us. Don't talk to us. 6 weeks to vet you, to look at your stuff, to find your references, all that stuff. So I applied, and then I'm finally like, I need coffee. So I go make coffee before I come back to the computer. I'm already looking up number 3, have past life regression. I come back with my cup of coffee. I sit down, a thing pops up. You've got mail. I open it up, and it's the president of Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep who says, I never do this, but I'm in the office. I looked up, I saw your application come in. I know the area coordinator where you are. I looked at your website. You're in. You start right away. I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. This was a pattern. I could already see a pattern starting. Number 3, have a past life regression. Well, number 3 didn't happen yet, but when I got back from the doctor, that book was waiting for me in my mailbox. But at the doctor was a whole nother set of syncs. I said, I'm tired. I said, the angels told me, my heart was beating. I was so afraid. I didn't know how to tell him I had this spiritual experience. He looked up at me. He said, you're tired? I'm like, look, I'm not tired, but angels told me to tell you I was. And I really thought, is he going to kick me out? And he went, well, that's a coincidence. Just this morning, I had a client. He has really low B12 levels, and it kind of manifests as a pain condition. Have we ever checked your B12 levels? I said, no. We did. I do. Started shots. It was part of my answer. It happened right away. So it was that afternoon already. I'm walking in with Convoluted Universe, and in there is a note. Somebody just sent this book to me out of nowhere. She said, Dolores is having class this summer. This was about April, all this was going on. Maybe you could go. So I quick get online. I make a phone call. What's the class? It's July 11th through 13th. It's $500. It's that weekend. I'm like, whoa. Okay. So I'm sitting there thinking about it. Look at the calendar. One of our children is graduating. The other one's in sports. My mother is there. I have horses. Every weekend from April to September is booked except for July 11th through 13th. Wide open. And I'm like, holy shit. And so then it's $500. Where am I supposed to get $500? Now, I could have got to savings, right? But right at the moment where my mind was just starting to create the question of where am I supposed to get $500? My mother, remember the little German? She's a little German lady. She's a little short thing. She's staying with us at the time, and she walks in. Candy, you never take anything from me, and I want you to take some monies this time, please. Please. She's holding a check in her hand. I'm looking at that check. I've been here for weeks, and you've not taken anything, please. Please, just this once, takes this money from me. I'm like, it's $500. I know it's $500. She walks over. She hands it to me. My name, $500. And I'm like, I am so filled with energy, I can't even tell you, right? I have to wait a few weeks. But the minute I start the drive, in my head, they're like, she's going to pick you to be the demonstration subject. That's where you're going to get your past life regression. It's not going to be just another person there. It's going to be her. She's going to be the one to do your past life regression. I'm like, there's 30 people in the class. Why would she pick me? I knew that the way it was a volunteer sheet, right? So when I got to the class, guess what I did? I did not put my name on that list. I did not. And I was terrified because why? I thought I was thwarting God in a way. Because I was told, it doesn't matter if you put your name on that list or not, she's going to pick you. So me and one other older guy who was a hypnotherapist in town where Dolores worked did not put his name on the list. We didn't. And when it came time for her to pick her volunteer, she walked tables like this. I was sitting in the back like I always do. She walked down. She stood in front of me. She goes, "This is highly unusual. But they have told me you're the one who's supposed to have..." At that moment, I knew this was my life's work. I knew it. How could that happen? How could that happen? And I have trusted my gut and this process ever since. All right. Just some slides of us, some pictures of us. I miss her terribly. My beautiful Dolores. In some ways, a lot of people who say things like, "I only just now even knew who she was. I wish I would have known her when she was alive." You know what? She's the easiest person of all to hear who's on the other side of the veil. Just start talking to her. In your head, she will start answering you. And you will think you're making it up for a while until you hear something and you go, "I don't even really know what that means or what that..." And then you have to look it up, and then you'll know she is talking to you. One of the ways I knew for sure that for sure it was happening for me was once she used a couple of phrases, and one was just a weird term, but it was something about somebody alcohol usage, and she said something about jungle juice. I'm like, "What's jungle juice?" I had no idea what it was. I had to look it up. It was a term Dolores used, in her circles. All right. Okay, this is my last and final slide. And this final story has it all. It has everything. It has the synchronicities. It has the sudden awareness of a person, once again, Dolores Cannon, all experienced by this lovely man who brought all of the right ingredients. Pay attention to some of the things that he says about his session. He manifested the healing to his issue within 30 seconds of having the session. It was an emotional and very physical challenge. And I'm going to play a video of him discussing what happened during his, before and during his session. This is about 2 minutes and 20-second video.
It was a session where I really didn't understand how any of it could heal me. But I'm healed. I was listening to Dolores Cannon interview, and I was doing some work on my computer, and then when that video on YouTube was over, it had switched to another video, which was you being interviewed, and I was actually, by this time, I was playing solitaire, and at the moment, I was playing the Grandmaster Solitaire level, which I'd only beat like 1 or 2 other times, and at the very moment that I beat that level, you in your interview had said, "Well, Dolores always says that if you ever got to this planet, that you have won the golden ticket." And at the very moment I beat solitaire, a banner came across the screen and it said, "You have won the golden ticket." And I knew right then, because I had been asking, I got chills too. I've been asking my guides, and I had been praying to God and meditating, extensive silent meditation, to find the proper person to do my session, because I had a little astral projection where Dolores came over me about a year prior to that, and I didn't know who this older woman was, but she was waving her hands over me, and she was like giving me a healing, and I found out about a week or 2 after that through a friend who said, "David, you should do one of these sessions," and she said, "I'm a practitioner, and I can do it for you." Sent me a Dolores Cannon video on YouTube, and I listened to it. It was like a year earlier, and realized that that's the woman that was over me. But her and my session kept getting canceled for one reason or another. And she finally came to me and said, "David, and she's a good friend of mine, very spiritual. And she finally said, "I just don't think I'm the person that's supposed to do it." And so I went into a lot of meditation to find the right person. And when that moment occurred, I was ecstatic. I was actually rushed with so much energy that I was probably high for like 3 days after that. I was jumping up and down and skipping around.
He came to that session with with three things, three goals. This very emotional and very physical challenge that was healed instantly. He had a back issue that he was working on, and he was looking for a life partner. And the reason we did that YouTube interview was he had contacted me, and his healing had stayed. Everything was well in his body and in his emotions, and he had just met a woman, and they were together. I mean, it was like number 2. He was still working on number 3 at the time of this interview, and you can find it on our YouTube channel. Of course, it's called The Golden Ticket. So, to conclude, I grew up being told that miracles and miraculous events, instantaneous healings, were incredibly rare, bestowed upon the very lucky or the very pious, and that humans had little to zero influence on creating them or manifesting them. And what I know now, though, after witnessing so many in my work, is that while we absolutely really cannot order up a miracle like we order up lunch, because we live in that participatory reality, we can put ourselves in some of the best positions to create a miracle for ourselves or help someone live, think about, helping themselves and create one for them. Being here is part of that, by the way. Just doing stuff like this, sharing your heart field with others, your energy field. Humans are said to only use 10% of their consciousness at any one time. And I always wonder how much of our brain's capacity is what I meant to say. How much of our larger consciousness do we ever use at any one time or ever aware of at any one time? I think pondering those things can assist. Imagining that you're watching yourself react to certain things can be helpful rather than the small you, thinking of how the larger or expanded portion of you, how it's reacting to different things. This is where Cynthia sues, how good can it get? No matter what it is, even if it looks ugly on the outside, well, what is this going to shift or shake up the energy to manifest or create in your future? We can put ourselves in the best conditions. And the more that you notice things like the Mandela Effect, the more that you notice inconsistencies, and the more you trust your memory, the better it gets. We already know that we live in a magnetic and electrical body and world. And feelings like joy and playfulness and connection and love and hugs, they have profound effects on our information fields, our human information fields. And pretty soon we're all going to be able to sort of see them. That's what sort of reading auras is. Sometimes you can just look at somebody and already know so many things. And you can trust yourself that some of that information that's coming is something that you can trust. And then the energies, of course, of fear and negativity and depression, they depress those fields. They shrink those fields. So these are very, obvious, and you can read them right there. Gratitude. Get away from the stinking electronic devices if you can. They really do something to us. And it's not just the devices. It's all of the things in the walls. It's hair dryers. It's refrigerators. Oh, my Lord. Refrigerators are powerful energy disruptors. They're big. And the walls that they're on, if they back up against a wall where your headboard is or something, that can really play into your health and peace. Watch out for the synchronicities. Trust your memories. Surround yourself with positive and open-minded people and content. Here's one. Change up your current physical world. We already talked about that. Your haircut. Buy a bracelet. Change something up. Wear a new color. Put on some different size heels on your shoes. Those kinds of things. It's amazing how they can help you move into a new timeline, right? Doing big things like changing your house. That can absolutely do it right. 10 conferences like this. That help other people thing. So my list of things to do, I still volunteer for Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. That is a huge part of how I still move and exist in this world and expect good things to come to me, because that work is completely volunteer work and it's ongoing and it's beautiful and it's necessary. And that's how I do it. And I don't care what position you are in your life, you can help other people. Even if you're bedridden, even if you're on your way out, there are things you can say, there are things you can notice that you can help other people. You absolutely can do that and get lots and lots of hugs and love for everyone. So I really do believe we've all won the golden ticket to be here on planet Earth. When you were here, when you were in the physical, you get those benefits, I think, much faster. It's sort of like skiing down the double black diamond hill instead of the bunny slope. I think some of the energy worlds that are not physical, maybe more things are possible there, but you don't get the same kind of points you do as you do being right here, because being here is hard. And that's exactly why we're here. And y'all are very courageous, but you did win that ticket. So spend it wisely. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Candace, Craw, Goldman!
I didn't even really cough today.
Would you like to do some questions?
Oh, sure. We have time.
Alex, oh, you got a little timer here. I need to get a cheat device like that. I like that. I need one of those. If I ever have a talk again. I went way over it last time I did one.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Miss Candace Craw Goldman, come on up. We have one microphone, as you guys know, unfortunately, so we will be sharing the mic, but anyone?
No.
There we go. No, maybe. Yep, nope, maybe.
Somebody's making
There we go. All right, well, I'm going to have you step aside just right over here, and I'm going to have her come up to the podium. That way she can be seen. Come on up.
Hey, everyone. I have a quick question for you. So I would like to know a little bit more about the actual techniques of BHQ and how past life regression goes into that. Or are those two separate things, or are they overlapping? I was wondering if you could give us some more details on that.
Sure. So BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, I remember the day that Dolores walked into a meeting, and up until that day, she called what she did Dolores Cannon's method of past life regression. But for a very long time, it was so much more than past life regression. The way it started was she was trying to help people relax, stop smoking, the basic stuff, anxiety, lose weight, those kinds of things. Her initial clients slipped into these past lives sort of accidentally. But she realized that very often these past lives would have great relevance in their current life for their health or whatever. So she created this method where the past life story seemed usually to hold keys for current life issues. But even while doing that, even while directing her clients into past lives, they would do explorations. They would explore future lives. They would explore other planets. They'd be like, I don't have a body. I'm just energy moving around. So much more of these sessions where really what we were doing was exploring consciousness took us to all these other realms. The clip that you saw of Emma Louise, she was speaking with Source. When you get there, everything's possible, So I remember she changed it to quantum healing. So when you are in this place, you are open to these concepts. And if you can allow your imagination to come through, I've always said that the imagination is the language of the higher self. And we are told as kids, oh, well, don't believe your imagination. And we belittle our imagination. We box it up. We say it's, you can have art every other Thursday for 15 minutes, but don't choose your imagination all the time. You need to do these things in this cubicle and do these very left-brain things. And we've minimized our access to our imagination. And this work says, no, 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 that's where the power is. So imagining all of those things allows other information to come through. Sometimes you'll have an experience where you were a different kind of healer accessing a different kind of energy in another planet or something, or another timeline. And something about that does the connection, the spooky action at a distance. They're quantumly connected now. You've just experienced another world like that, and something about that comes into your life and helps change it. When you open your mind like that, so a lot of it can be story-based, but sometimes there's no story at all. Sometimes, wow, I'm just floating in this sea of purple, and it's nice, and now all of the things that were big in my life are just gone, and they don't even need words to figure out. I can't tell you how many people show up for a quantum healing session, stand there at the door and say, I made the appointment to take care of this. None of that's even real anymore, but I'm still here. Sometimes it's just this idea of connecting and making, like I did. I changed my question. And sometimes people are like, I'm tired of this particular thing, or I want to make a change here. And it's this definitive change of be proactively going out and trying to do something. And often that's asking for help. Not that a facilitator does this for you, because that's not happening here. This is all self-healing. It's all self-healing. You have guidance, Somebody was like, well, maybe we could try this or look at it that way. How do we know, or how exactly does this work? Man, we don't know. And anyone who knows or says they know exactly how this works, I would laugh. We don't know how this works. It's the same thing as prayer. How does prayer work? I don't really know. But I know that if I have love in my heart and I care about you and I say, let's explore together and we can try and do it this way, miraculous things can happen. And with the evolution of quantum healing, we're opening up more and more and more. Emoto's work, we bring water into beyond quantum healing. We have a small ceremony. It's like a tea ceremony. It's not even, but it's a small ceremony with water, and we program that water. And then we have that before our session, and then that same program with water can carry on. And it's just wow. It's taking off all of the stinking rules that other humans have put on you from the time you were little, is really what it is. It's one giant permission slip, if it's anything. I hope that answered the question there. Yeah.
I have a question. In Dolores's work, she would find that she would have different patients, and they would go to the point of source, and then one patient would pick up the conversation where the last one left off. Yeah. Have you found this in your own work, and could you talk about that a little bit?
Man, Dolores was special. Occasionally, and not to the extreme extent that she did. Especially with her, if any of you aware of Dolores Cannon's Nostradamus books? Oh my. So what she was able to do was, she runs across a client who has his own, actually it was a woman, she has her own things. She's a very good subject. She's called, Dolores is researching history and everything. Pardon me. And the woman suddenly becomes, they don't know it at first, she suddenly, they find out she's a student of Nostradamus's. And pretty soon that comes to light as they explore and they do more sessions. And pretty soon even, Dolores realizes she's really interested in the teacher, not the student. Well, tell me what your teacher says. The next thing you know, the teacher's like, well, you're just trying to talk to me anyway, so why aren't you talking to me directly? And Dolores is like, whoa. So then they do that through Dolores's client. Then the client actually gets tired of all this, believe it or not. She's like, Dolores, I got to move to Alaska now. I don't want to do these sessions anymore. Dolores is like, oh my gosh, don't you go anywhere. I've got this book to write. I'm talking to Nostradamus. Nostradamus says, look, now I know how to contact you. I can contact you through anyone. And then he says to her, and the next one I'm going to contact you through is going to have a bigger science vocabulary, because this woman, he couldn't find the words in her consciousness to speak to him. She got 3 volumes from, I think it's something like 11 different clients. No, nobody's even come close to that. That is so Dolores. Now, I've had it, and other practitioners have had like the 2, like you'll have someone in the session and they won't know who your last client was, but the expanded consciousness might make connections like, that woman who was here last week or whatever. So those connections are made, but not like Dolores. There was something, she was extremely connected in that way. I think she ushered in all of this work to us. But I will tell you what she is doing that I think is really fascinating. She hasn't left us so far that she is way past the veil. She's right on the veil. And do you know what she's doing? Much like we are using consciousness to elevate and communicate just beyond the veil, guess what she's doing? She's doing the same thing for some of the consciousness that's non-physical, that's interested in us. Do you know that most living consciousness are not physical? Not physical. There are non-physical beings who think that physicality is a myth, that we can have consciousness in the physical. So imagine Dolores telling a group of non-physical beings, yeah, I used to live there, man. I had these humans and everything. And these non-physical beings are going, get out. That's just the story. That's not really real. So where my interaction with Dolores suggests that she's there, we're here, and she's helping interface the non-physical while all of us are going, well, we want to talk to you guys. And it's sort of like these translators and interpreters are meeting on this sort of interim level right now. And there's some other crazy things going on too. Example, in my dream time, I'm in a process of doing an extended series of past life regressions with my own grandfather who died before my mother was even born. And I have met him in the dream state, and he's getting healing, even though he's physically long been dead. It's changing all the timelines, which, it's never-ending, fascinating work.
Thank you so much. That was definitely an answer to the question. I think it's amazing. I didn't realize there was Nostradamus that she was speaking with. I had heard the story, but I didn't realize specifically that's who the entity was.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this whole Nostradamus thing, there's many, many books you can read, and it's humans theorizing, right? Theorizing what Nostradamus went. Here's what Dolores did. So what did you mean by that one? All she did was write. She listened to what he was saying and wrote it down. So she was just basically taking dictation. And the crazy thing is the way he was communicating, he was using a shiny piece of black obsidian. He was like self-trancing. And speaking of male and female energies and things like that, he didn't realize until they were long into their work that she was a woman. He actually, they were talking about medical things. And she was like, well, my doctor, she said, or whatever. And he said, you mean he? No, she, my doctor. What are you talking about? Women aren't doctors. She's like, well, they can be anything they want. I could, and he's like laughing. And she's like, well, I'm a woman. He's like, no, you're not. I mean, they actually have this weird metaphysical exchange here because they're exchanging information, but, this way. It's kind of this way. So it's a approximation, And, amazing thing. Amazing stuff. Yeah.
It's not even a question. It's just a comment. I'm gonna get Shane later for it. But, you've been doing all these synchronicities, and you think none of these synchronicities match. But when you did that whole golden ticket thing, I'm laughing because everything is matching up. Before I came to Tennessee, I watched Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So... it's hilarious. That's, everything you said, look for the synchronicities. If it hasn't proved yet to anybody, then people questioning their gifts, it's there, it is there. I just think it's funny. It is.
I know Pippa's not here anymore, but, I walk up to Pippa and she's wearing that gold, and she's talking about the golden timeline, and she's wearing the golden thing, and I'm like, yeah. And somebody else said that somebody else is using the golden. There's people who are tossing around the phrase of moving into a golden age right now. I don't know. I think it kind of, oh, pardon me. You have to hear this. So the session I did with David, the golden ticket session, happened 2 years ago, right around Thanksgiving time. We did this YouTube video maybe 2 or 3 months after his initial session, right? And what a lovely man. But that's, not just about 2 years ago, right? It's been since I've talked to him. The first day I got here to Nashville, I just quickly looked at my email as I'm waking up the first day after that night. And it's David saying, I don't know, but something inspired me to click over onto your channel. I've just been thinking about you so much the last couple of days. That's how connected he is, of course, how connected we are. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and he's moved and things are even better for him. And, I'm telling him about what we're doing here and that he's part of the presentation that I'm doing. And I know that's why he connected with me. And it's just, these things just continue and continue. So you have this idea, oh, I should reach out to so-and-so, right? How many of us just go, oh, I don't have time, or I'll do it later or whatever. It's following those little hits, right? And he's been doing that, right? Even him and his friend, the one who said, well, this is the third time we're canceling it. This is the universe saying, nope, it's not the right combination of things, right? It's not the right time yet. Something's not quite right. And so he followed that. And he followed, then again, his intuition to just say hi to me. And what a gift that is, that the lift, right, that you get from that. All right. Okay. Oh, here's another BQH practitioner.
Well, this is more of a comment, and Candace is one of my teachers, and she touched on this subject, and I want to encourage her to do a talk on the following that helped me out this whole weekend. I'm on guidance, and I'm on guidance with my body, which is sort of like 2.0, what Candace taught me. But she teaches us from her experience of her illness how to become friends with your body. And the crazy thing is I heard her give that talk twice. And the first time I got a good bit of it, and I thought I understood it. But the second time, it just really clicked. The other thing that relates to everything Candace is saying is that the poetry that I wrote happened when I was re-upping my BQH, working with, of course, everybody, well, everybody here, but Cynthia Sue. We had a couple of sessions coaching. So there was that connection. And I did some other BQH sessions. And I've been thinking about this person that I had an intense amount of entanglement with, incredibly great experiences, who I did Quantum Connect with. And I've been thinking about her the last 2 days. And she's here, it's Priscilla. So, it's just blowing me away. Talk about a full circle.
Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Candace Craw Goldman.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was so much fun. And I come back. Will you please invite me? I'll come.
You are invited next time, 100%.